Hi everyone, and welcome again to Creative Cakes by Sharon. Today I'm creating a very special Unikitty Lego cake for you. I've had so many requests to make Unikitty following my other Lego cake, so I thought I'd make it extra special this time and create a 3D Unikitty. If you haven't already seen the other cakes, guys, in my Lego series, you can click on any of the characters you see on screen now to view the tutorials. Make sure you subscribe to my channel so that you can see all of my creative cake tutorials as I release them. So let's get started. I've got a picture of Unikitty here and some of my template pieces that we're working with. You can get a link to this template in the description box below. And I've got a 6x8 store-bought sponge cake here, and you get 4 layers with the 2 cakes. I've got a big serrated sharp knife. I've got 2 round cutters here. I've got an edible black marker. I've got my offset spatula, a little palette knife. I've got my X-Acto blade and a straight sharp knife. I've also got these 2 little boards which we're going to use to support the cake today. You could use cake boards or some cardboard covered in foil. I've got some chocolate ganache. I've also got a little bit of white melted chocolate. And I've got my long fondant roller. I've got some white, dark pink, light pink and turquoise coloured fondant. I've also got a little bit of yellow, a tiny bit of black, a little bit of light green and a little bit of brown. And here I've got a waffle ice cream cone. It's handy to have 2 of these in case we crack one while we're making it. And I've also got my white covered board. So to start with, I'm just going to position my rectangular piece of my template onto the cake and cut through all the layers of the cake. I need to do this twice for the body and the head. Now to create the tail, I only need 2 layers, so I'm just going to remove the top 2 layers of my cake, position the tail template onto the cake, and with my sharp knife, I'm going to hold the knife vertically and cut around the template and remove off the excess. And for Unikitty's ears, we're going to follow that same process and cut the 2 triangles out. And now using just 1 layer of my sponge cake, I'm just going to cut out 2 circles using my 1-inch cutter. To create the body and the leg shape for Unikitty, we're going to put one of the rectangular pieces we cut onto its side, pop the template on top, and with my knife I'm going to hold it nice and straight and cut around that archway and remove that little bit of excess cake. Now that I've cut out all the pieces of cake that I need, I'm going to cover them all with a layer of chocolate ganache. I want to make sure that I get into all of the grooves and the edges. I also want to cover the top and bottom of each piece of cake. And while I'm trying to get a nice smooth coverage, I'm not going to worry too much because I'm going to smooth out the ganache a little bit later. So once I've got a good covering on each piece of cake, I'm going to pop it in the fridge for about 20 minutes to set. Now I'm going to use my waffle cone and my sharp serrated knife to create Unikitty's horn. So about 1.5 inches up from the tip of the cone, I'm just going to rub my knife back and forward and keep rotating the cone around until I create a nice sharp cut. You might need a spare one of these just in case you crack the cone, but you should eventually end up with a nice clean cut. Now to ensure that our piece of waffle cone doesn't crack, I'm going to cover it with some nice white melted chocolate. So just with my little palette knife, I'm just going to cover it with a coating of white chocolate and leave it to dry. I've got all my little pieces of cake out of the fridge now, and the ganache is set to the touch, so I'm going to smooth the surface of the ganache now. So using some boiling water and my offset spatula, I just dip it into the hot water, wipe off the excess, and then just smooth over the surfaces of all of the cakes. I'm going to keep doing this until I can achieve as smooth a surface as possible. Now I've put the cakes aside for a moment because I want to decorate my cake board and I want to make it look like, in fact, a Lego board. If you've seen some of my other Lego cake tutorials, you'll know how this is done, and it's very easy to do. All I've done here is roll out some white fondant, and using my 1-inch round cutter, I'm cutting out a series of circles. Then I'm going to start adhering them to my cake board with a little bit of water at the back of each circle and start lining them up vertically up along my board and across horizontally. I don't need to cover the entire cake board with these circles because we need our cake to stand flat on the board. So I'm going to use my little cake board as a guide and work around that and continue to stick on the rest of my spots. Now I've just got my picture of Unikitty here as a guide, and I'm going to work on the fondant for the bottom section of her body. So starting off with some pink fondant, I'm just going to roll that out to about 2 mils thick. I'm going to cut the bottom edge nice and straight. And then with some water and a paintbrush, I'm going to wet the top half of Unikitty's body. and then turn that around and line it up nice and neatly about an inch from the bottom of the feet on the pink fondant. Then I'm going to trim off all of the excess following the line of the cake. To do the opposite side, I'm just going to again wet the cake with my paintbrush in the water and line it up using the bottom piece of fondant as a guide looking through the legs, and then I'm going to flip it over and trim off the excess. I'm also going to use my blade to remove the little arches in between each of the legs, and for each of the sides I'm going to stick them onto the offcuts and trim off away the excess. To cover under the arch, I've got a piece of fondant here which I'm just going to pop in the middle, mark off where it meets the front piece of fondant, trim it off, and then this time I'm going to wet the fondant instead of the cake, pop it back in, and then I'm going to line it up nicely, trim off the excess, and then use my fingers to smooth and blend the joins of the fondant on both sides. To create the stripes at the bottom of Unikitty's legs, I've rolled out some white, turquoise and yellow fondant. And for both legs I need a white strip each. So once I've cut my white strip, I've just wet the cake and then draped the fondant over the front, top and inner side of the cake. And I'm just going to let the excess hang off to the side because when we flip the cake over we're going to need this piece of fondant. So I'm just going to continue this process for the next white, the blue and the yellow strips. And using my fingers while I attach these pieces of fondant to the cake, I'm going to blend each of the joins. Once I flip the cake on its side, it's just a matter of adhering those strips and blending the joins. Now, in order to make the bottom half of the cake strong enough to support the top head, I'm going to use my little cake board here at the top of Unikitty's body, and I'm going to pop over a piece of pink fondant and smooth the joins together. Now, to make sure that my cake sits securely on the board, I'm going to use a little bit of white chocolate under the legs and secure the cake to the board. Now I'm going to cover the little piece of cake that we cut out to make the neck in some green fondant. So just rolling it out, trimming it down and rolling up the cake in the middle of the fondant. And I'm just going to attach that now to the top of the cake, again using a little bit of the white chocolate. A little tip here, if you're going to use anything else but a sponge cake, you will need a little bit extra reinforcement in this little part of the neck, perhaps a little piece of plastic dowel, but for a sponge cake it will be fine. Now with Unikitty's tail, I'm not going to cover the underneath side of the tail, so for the top section I've rolled out some white fondant and I'm just going to adhere that to the top of the tail, making sure I smooth into the grooves nicely, and then for either side of the tail I've just rolled out my turquoise fondant which I'm going to adhere to either side, cut off the excess around the tail. And then again with a little bit of my melted white chocolate, I'm going to pop some onto the back of Unikitty's body and hold the tail in place for about 5 to 10 seconds until the chocolate is set. To cover Unikitty's ears in the bright pink fondant, I just do exactly the same as I did with her tail. Before I start work on covering Unikitty's head, I'm going to attach my second piece of card to the underneath of this cake using a little bit of the white melted chocolate. This is going to give me a nice strong smooth surface. Now I'm going to cover the head in the same way I did the bottom half of the body with the white and pink fondant on all sides, and I'm going to attach the ears and the little white piece of cake to the top of her head. To cover Unikitty's horn, I've got some turquoise fondant which I'm going to roll my cone in, use my fingers to smooth the join and trim off the excess at the top and the bottom, and then using the back of my serrated knife I'm just going to press it into the fondant, moving upwards to create Unikitty's spiral. Now we're moving on to the fun part, and that's to create Unikitty's face. It's simply a matter of cutting out a half circle piece of fondant, attaching that to the cake. Then using the same white fondant I'm going to cut out 2 circles, and then out of those 2 circles I'm just going to cut a little bit more out because I just want the top sort of like a crescent shape for the top part of her eyes. I'm just going to adhere those to the cake. Now using some of the turquoise fondant I'm going to cut 2 circles and adhere those to the cake. On top of that then goes the black circles of fondant, and then I'm going to finish it off with 2 little white pieces of fondant which I've rolled into little balls. I'm just going to press them on. These are going to create the reflections in Unikitty's eyes. Now using my edible black marker, I'm just going to draw along the top outline of her eye and then put 3 little eyelashes doing this for the other eye as well. Using my brown fondant now, I'm just cutting out a semicircle and sticking that onto the middle of the face for the mouth. And I'm just going to quickly draw a little line which connects her nose and her mouth together. And then using some pink fondant, which I've rolled into a little oval, I'm going to pop that on for her nose, 2 little round spots for her cheeks, and a nice round flat piece of pink fondant for her tongue. Now I'm going to carefully adhere the horn to the top of her head using some of the melted white chocolate and holding it in place for a few seconds until the chocolate sets. Now it's time to carefully pop Unikitty's head onto the neck, so I've just got some white chocolate here on top of the neck, carefully lifting up the head and positioning it on top of the body. Just going to hold it in place for a few seconds until the chocolate sets. And here's the finished product, a 3D Unikitty Lego cake. Guys, if this cake is a little bit of a challenge for you, it's very versatile and you can lay all the pieces flat and create a 2D Unikitty Lego cake. So guys, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like and share it with your friends. I love to hear your feedback and your requests, so drop me a line in the comment section below. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more creative cake tutorials, and as always, thanks for watching.